All right, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you all had a nice lunch break. We are up for some really exciting talks here. So first up, we have Kristen Holtz, the head of tracking and cinematics at Skydio. Kristen Holtz is a roboticist with a passion for creating useful and compelling robots that people love to use. She's head of tracking and cinematics at Skydio, where her team focuses on robust subject tracking and cinematic planning. After graduating from Caltech and CMU, she joined Skydio in 2016 and has been involved in every Skydio product launch. So give Kristen a warm welcome. And
okay, great. Yeah, as Brian said, my name is Kristen. I'm the head of tracking and cinematics at Skydio, and I'm going to talk to you about how we release real robots into the wild. So what is Skydio? What do we do? We are the leading American drone manufacturer, and we've shipped over tens of thousands of units across consumer, enterprises, first responders, and the US government. We cover all manner of use cases. Our mission is to make the world more productive, creative, and safe with autonomous flight. So this covers several key product areas. One is inspection and mapping. Another is situational awareness. And last but not least is cinematography. My team is responsible for the cinematography portion. So that is capturing the best footage we possibly can and giving users the best experience to be able to capture that footage. Sadie also does amazing work in inspection and mapping with a product called 3D Scan. So I highly encourage you to look that up, but that's not what we'll talk about today. So next, I have a video that some of you caught a brief glimpse of earlier, which is some of our customer highlights. So these are real customers who chose to buy our drone, take footage of whatever they were doing or landscapes around them and upload it on YouTube. And all we did was ask them if we could please share it with everyone else. The drone is flying autonomously in these videos whenever it's tracking someone. Fully autonomous, they just pick a person and go. And when it's shooting landscapes, it's manually flown, but it has full obstacle avoidance at all times.
Let's do it. Dream descent with the Skydio.
What? All right, well, there's a soundtrack to this, and it's a fun one. So get hyped. You can like it flies backwards, it flies through all these trees, like it's fun, it's safe, people choose to come the rest of the people. No, that is either the choice of the user to like edit their video or us to edit their video sometimes. So I'm really proud of this product. I think it's a pretty great product. And I would also say that most of you in this room would know how to do most of what it takes to create this in some preliminary demo stage. So today I'm going to talk about how do we get from a great demo to a great product. And the two main things I want to focus on are usability and robustness. I'm going to talk about those in the framework of three of the features that my team has worked on: subject tracking, keyframe, and the beacon. So first, subject tracking. So this is the Skydio 2 drone. This is our primo consumer drone. And the main things that are fed into the autonomy system are the 6 4K 200-degree navigational fisheye cameras are being streamed into the NVIDIA Tegra TX2. And then we have a 4K 60 HDR camera. That's the actual videos you were seeing shot in the previous video. And then there's obviously IMU, GPS, barometer, standard stuff. So our goal with the autonomy stack is to create robust visual navigation in complex unknown environments with full 360 obstacle avoidance and visual perception. So the underlying thing is you have to have state estimation first. You have to know where you are and how fast you're going. And our robust VIO system enables navigation in GPS and RF denied environments where most other drones really struggle in those environments. And we also have the only known production robot using rolling shutter VIO. Rolling shutter cameras are a lot cheaper than global shutter cameras, which is really part of the motivation there. But it's also much more difficult to do VIO or obstacle avoidance using those cameras. On top of this, we have obstacle avoidance. So obviously our goal is to not crash. Our team demonstrated the first instance of complex obstacle avoidance using deep learning in July of 2018. And if you just remember our results, you can see it's picking up more from branches, power lines, textureless walls, things that are really difficult to pick up with pure vision. And we're only using pure vision. And then on top of this, we plan where to fly. We plan how to capture the shot. So we do dynamic maneuvering based off of a set of high-level objectives. And then there's a unit optimization problem that currently solves for over 50 objectives, 500 iterations per second. So this is it in action. On the right, you can see the stitched version of the fisheye cameras, all sitting together. And then on the bottom is the output of our obstacle avoidance depth mapping system. And we use these inputs to capture the video you see on the left. So we have to think about things like, how do we make sure how can we fly backwards and both get the depth of the biker and also make sure we don't hit anything behind us. We have to make decisions like maybe we let the biker get occluded slightly in order to avoid a tree or other branches, which happens. We're going downhill right now. You can see there, we turned around and flipped around here in order to avoid those trees, and we still kept up and remained tracking. So yeah, and the fast downhill speed is a complicated controls problem as well. So in order to be robust to anywhere that someone would fly a consumer drone, which is really almost anywhere you can think of, we have to try to handle all of these kinds of challenging, classically challenging use cases, textureless regions, reflective surfaces. We have to do it well. And we also have to do things like predict subject movement, right? Subjects, people, I call them subjects because they're subject to the shot, shoot. They want to film themselves biking, driving a car, walking and running, but they also want to film themselves jumping on a trampoline, silhouetted by the sun, where you can't really see their face or clothes or anything. So these are kinds of things we have to be robust to. But also some things that are kind of impossible to predict and very difficult to be robust to, like these users are flying into the sun, into a bunch of power lines that are extremely difficult to see. Even I can't see them until they're like a foot or 2 feet away. This is not the way you're supposed to fly a drone. Very scary. But these are the kinds of challenges that we're looking at going forward, right? Like how can we build a system that would also be able to handle this, where we kind of, I think, got lucky in this case. We saw some of them, not all of them. Part of being robust is not just having algorithms that I've talked about so far be robust, it's also having full system level robustness, right? People will do anything to your robot. You sell it to them, they're like, it's mine now, we'll do anything. And so I have built a framework for handling any number of optimal scenarios, from low battery, where we have to, find a flat place to land and land there, or we have to warn the user that they should return home to make it all the way back. If they're over water, that's really important, or over a canyon. Lost connection, we need to return to some rally points or launch point. It's too windy, too hot, too dark, there's a sensor failure. These are all kinds of things that we need to handle. And it relies on us having an easy software framework to add these things, test them in a very straightforward way. So next I'm going to talk about Keyframe. Keyframe is one of our newer features released in January of this year. And it's basically a really easy way for totally novice pilots to get a shot that an expert pilot would normally get. So you just pick some points in the world by moving your drone to those points. Then the Skydio drone creates the spline and flies along the spline for you.
Do you want to leave full screen?
Maybe my answer is no. So this is really easy to fly. You can just fly your drone, which has full optical avoidance anything you want. The drone will avoid obstacles moving on this line, and you can repeat it over and over again with pretty high precision in order to, have your actors move in different ways in each shot and be really creative. The reviews have been really great. Tech reviewers have been really positive. Like, it's a simple idea, but it's also something they wish they had thought of. Like, it's not always easy to think of these ideas that feel simple. But even as importantly, our users are really excited about it. They're excited to use something that's creates complicated shots without being complicated. They're excited that we didn't charge them for it. And they're excited to, like, they're creating in droves. So these are just some of the shots that we've had our users create and that they've created on their own, and that they've uploaded to Instagram or YouTube and wanted to share with the world. So they're capturing, landscapes themselves, parkour, they're doing all kinds of things, and without needing to man the sticks. So now I want to talk a little about one of the bugs that we encountered in this last 6 months since it's been out. And this is just an example of the kind of thing we might encounter in general. But basically, we made an assumption that people would set up their keyframes roughly within line of sight or close to it, like maybe you'd fly around the building, but you could still know where it was. But that assumption was wrong. A user created a mile-long keyframe, which led to severe latency, which is basically because when we render the keyframe for the user, we step through it in fixed length increments. So it scales linearly with the length of the keyframe. And so this is something that the engineers didn't test, product didn't test, testing team didn't test, because we all just kind of assumed. So the drone paused before starting the motion and then never unpaused. It just exited keyframe back to the default manual skill. And the user was unable to capture their shot. You can see it's 500 meters in either direction. It's very long. But the good of this is that keyframe runs in a sandbox. So that sandbox was restarted by the drone when it recognized this latency. A couple seconds later, the restart took a couple more seconds, and then the user was able to continue on making a new keyframe spline or doing some other activity. And the drone kept hovering stably during this restart, and the user would still be able to manually fly the drone at this time. So part of robustness is overall system robustness, being robust to things like this. It runs in a higher level separate thing that we know can sometimes be buggy. And my other key to robustness is to challenge your expectations. Constantly think outside of the box for possible use cases that are not what you would have used it for. So moving on, how do you make a drone or a robot that a 2-year-old can use? So how do you make, let's say, an interface to that robot that a 2-year-old understands how to use? So this next video is devastatingly you won't be able to hear, but is just that.
All right, stand there, stop, press and hold the blue button to take off.
So this is actually one of our co-founders, Matt, telling his daughter, Sammy, who's 2 in this video, to press and hold the button.
Hey, you did it.
It says it's flying.
Point
And now
at
he's
the drone
telling
and
her
then
to
wave your
point
arm.
at the
Press the button and then
point at the drone,
wave your arms
press the
around.
button and wave her arms.
Like that. Wave your
A couple more iterations
point
of
at the
this.
drone with the beacon and then press the button. All right, now turn in a
He
circle.
finally presses the button and
Yeah,
turns
look at that.
around.
All right, run, Sammy, run.
And he's supposed to
It'll
run.
follow you.
So this is just how simple the beacon is to use. So what is the beacon? The beacon is basically a Roku size. Oh, I have one in my, Eric, do you want to help me? The beacon is a Roku sized remote device that Eric will pass around in a second. And it has 6 buttons, an IMEO barometer and a GPS and radio transmitter receiver situation. And the ultimate goal of this was to create unshakable GPS tracking, something we had prototyped using a mobile phone and that GPS, but mobile phones can be really inconsistent across different brands and versions of the phone. So some people will get pretty good experience and people will get really terrible experiences. So we want to make unshakable GPS tracking. It also extends the range up to 3 kilometers, where you get maybe 100 meters with a phone. So it's a very big difference. And we also enable these easy drag and drop controls that you saw Sammy, the daughter in the previous video, use. And then there is a weakness, which is that GPS tracking is not as accurate as visual tracking. So we work to fuse GPS and visual tracking. We have to determine, oh, like which person that I see is holding the beacon, and then use that visual tracking, which is more precise, has lower latency, stuff like that. So the first part of going, oh wait, sorry, I forgot about this. This is my dog, Teddy. He's the greatest dog in the world. And this is actually Teddy with Sam, the 2-year-old, but she's the one here in the video. Teddy actually demonstrated the first use of dog tracking using the beacon. So the beacon wonderfully can do things like track things that we don't have visual detection networks for, like dogs. And so I was so excited to get this video that I did not wait till the next day when it was brighter out, which is like, we got to get it now. And one of the great things about working at Skydio for me is that I get to see what people post, and like some of our users are actually doing the same thing, you know, without us prompting or suggesting, but just thought like, I really want to put this beacon on my dog and capture this amazing footage. Right, so part of going from a great demo to a great product is first having a great demo. So this is Anurag, one of my coworkers. You can see like hide, so you can't have visual tracking anymore. We're slowly tracking the GPS. You can see it tracks him all the way over here. He peeks out and back. This is actually the first demo we did and shared with our Skydio as a company. And so even when you exchange the beacon, it's be following the person who now holds the beacon visually. And then I said to toss it, and somehow I did a good toss in this one take, which is amazing. So how do we go from this, which I think is a great demo, to a full great product? So part of this is something we realized early, which is like, how do you move the drone if you only have a beacon and it's not tracking you, right? What if it flies over to your neighbor, over your neighbor's yard? You don't get along with that neighbor, they're upset about it. You want to quickly get it back to you. So we had to introduce steering with the beacon, and there's only 6 buttons. One is reserved for like exiting out of things. So you usually have 5 buttons to steer. So the initial prototype here was just using like the plus and minus buttons that you see here to raise and lower Z. Then the blue button would go forward, and these buttons would turn and yaw left and right. But our one of our UX engineers had a really clever and fun idea to use the IMU of the beacon to do this steering. So they would like hold the blue button and then tilt and turn in order to turn the drone and accelerate in different directions. So he implemented this, and the early reviews from our flight testers and engineers like myself were really positive. They're really excited to play with this. We're like, it's so cool. But then we released it to the full company to test, and immediately like our head of flight testing was like, this is probably not a good idea. We should revert it. And that was really the feedback we've heard from like a meeting about it with people saying their experience. And so we had to like solicit more feedback from other team members. And then we just pulled it out. We're like, we don't think we can make it where it's really intuitive, especially in a pinch. You know, you're trying to like get something out quickly. You don't have time to think about, oh, I need to turn it more this way. It's a little bit too difficult. And then immediately reviews from other non-engineers were like way more intuitive, way better. They vastly preferred it. I think the takeaway here is really like absolutely try to innovate. Like that's the fun part, and so many good ideas come out of innovation. The same UX engineer had a huge part to play with people. But you can't be afraid to reverse course. Sometimes there's not the time. Sometimes the idea is just too clunky, it doesn't work. So sometimes you need to keep it simple, and you always need to listen to your users, even if you're really proud of the idea. Another thing we learned actually in beta testing, so shortly after, was that people, unlike myself, would be really confused if the drone was tracking them but not looking at them. So you can see at the beginning of this GIF that the car is not in the phone frame. And so when this would happen to beta testers, they'd be like, I don't want to move, I don't want to do anything, like I don't know what it's doing. And it would be a scary like situation. There's a drone buzzing above them. And so we had to add these AR parentheses in order to inform them like, hey, it is tracking you. It's just a little off to the side. Like you can maybe try to move and it'll figure it out. And if it doesn't, then freak out, or not freak out, but they might anyways. And so this is like much better now. Like I heard no feedback since then, which I think sometimes no feedback is good feedback. And yeah. And then sometimes we don't catch problems before they get out. Sometimes despite everything we try, there's a problem. And so this is just something I woke up to one day.
Worth it to have this drone follow you in a time where you don't want it to get stuck.
This is a YouTuber.
So there it is.
Who's talking about how the drone is following him.
Alrighty. It worked itself free.
And
And also, the lighting is not that great right now. It's very dark, especially where it got stuck back there.
you can see it's not
But the
visually
good thing
shocking
is the
to
drone
me.
didn't end up crashing. So we've got about 28% battery left. We're going to continue to drive down here a little bit.
And that's it.
Yo,
He says, yo, it just dive bombed into the water. That's what he says.
it just dive bombed into the water. Alright, so we were passing by somebody on the way out. He had
favorite
waders.
person.
He was
This
able
guy's
to
the
go
hero.
in and
He
get
just happens
it
to be
for
there and
us.
have waders on.
So the
I
drone
love
is
it.
completely waterlogged.
So this video has
Worth it?
over 100,000 views on YouTube. Super fun. And luckily, like this came through customer support very quickly. I think we might have reached out or he did, I don't remember, but we got the drone back, sent some new drones to replace it. We then got the logs off the drone and his phone and the beacon, I think, and we're able to like see what went wrong. So this is a kind of an overview of what went wrong. The green is the beacon altitude, relative beacon altitude to the start. So it's like roughly staying at the same altitude of the barometer pressure and altitude. And then the orange is the visual estimate. The fuse estimate, using the visual and GPS, it's following the visual estimate until we lose visual sight, and then it goes to match where the beacon barometer was. So basically what happened is, due to like a lot of the environment being dim and some of it being featureless, not in the clip we saw but earlier in the video being pretty sparse features, our VIO system just kind of drifted upwards in a way that didn't really impact controls because it wasn't fast of a drift upwards, but it obviously really impacted how our barometer relates to our visual estimates in a major way. So the major thing here is like anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Sometimes VIO will drift, like sometimes everything will fail. Like every part can have some kind of weakness to some environmental conditions. So try to think about as many errors as you can and try to handle all of them. And then also prepare for failure. Collect everything you need in a log that's easy to upload to the user so that we can get it back and learn from it and make your product iteratively more and more robust. So luckily, thankfully, not every product weakness is found through customer support. Not every product weakness is something that a user immediately sees as a problem. So this is an example of that. So this is just a video I saw on YouTube when I was watching. It looks pretty good. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. You wait for it. Wait for it. Right there. Okay, ready? Now, there's like this jerk up in the video, which on some level it's like, oh, well, like it's tracking you, let's keep going, his run isn't disrupted, everything's fine. But on another level, like this isn't something you would see a drone cinematographer do. And it's not something that you would put in a movie that you would share necessarily, right? Like people who are really into sharing footage, like they're not going to use this. So in this case, because the user didn't have a problem with it enough to contact customer support, we didn't have a log, right? We only get logs back if customer support gets like receives the logs, and then they're like, okay, our engineers will log. So this is where like having a flight test team, this is one of the many times having a flight test team is super clutch. So I talked to the flight test team, was like, use the beacon, try to get it to like lose and gain visual side of you a couple times, and like try to go that way. And they were able to repro it. So if you watch, you can see it right there, and right there. There's a 2, 1, 2. And so they were able to get like a full log with all of the data we collect. And I was able to like really quickly iterate on a solution, like find the problem, have a solution, test the solution within like 2 days or less, and put that in the next release to be more robust for future customers. So really like being able to reproduce an issue is extremely powerful. And so having a flight testing team that is dedicated to things like this is a game changer. And I would also say that fast iteration is also extremely impactful. So overall, how do we get from a great demo to a great product? It's about usability, which I mostly equate to simplicity and predictability, and robustness, which for me means like iterate quickly, plan for failure, think about all the failures there is, and keep going until you find nothing, and then look for more things that are wrong and fix those too. So some questions that I think the research community might ask yourselves is, will someone benefit from the thing that I'm building or exploring? Are there constraints on this problem that are realistic, or are they unrealistic constraints that people might not actually need or experience? Is it something people want? And do people enjoy using your robot, right? At some level, at some point, a person will use your robot in some capacity, right? Like almost none of you that I can imagine will use something that's fully autonomous. They'll have some interface. And so it really, really matters. For robustness, I would say share what didn't work. There were a couple of papers that I saw publish negative results, and I really applaud those people for sharing them. And even if you don't publish it, maybe you put it in a blog post, what you found that did not work, because that's so important for like the robotics community as a whole to make robots more robust. Say these are more failure cases, like these are more things that we need to take care of, and these are more data sets. And at some point, your demo has to work every time. At some point, someone's going to use it. It needs to work every time or fail really gracefully. And I would also ask, what benchmarks are meaningful? Are the benchmarks relevant to your subfield? Are you getting fractions of a percentage point improvements? Are you getting large improvements? Fractions of a percentage point, maybe we need to find a more challenging benchmarks. I'd also say like a lot of the benchmarks are centered around self-driving, which self-driving is fantastic, and I'm really excited to eventually take a nap on my commute. It's gonna be amazing. But there's other robots that do really amazing things, and we can use benchmarks for those as well. I think my number one takeaway is like at some point people will use your robot, so human-robot interaction is really important. And then another way that Skydio is reaching out to try to bridge the gap between industry and the research community is by publishing SimForce, which we presented to you on Wednesday. And so SimForce is an open source library for writing algorithmic code like SLAM, MPC, controls, final adjustment. And basically you just write symbolic math in Python, and then you like generate highly performant code. And so this has faster runtime, faster development cycles, and fewer lines of code, which means you can find problems faster, you can get code on the robot faster. And you'll also have faster runtime performance, which means your robot will be a little bit closer to being realistic to use in the real world. You won't have like the 8x speedups maybe, and look at those. So check it out and let us know what you think. If you hate it, let us know that. And if you love it, also let us know that. So yeah, we are hiring full-time internships, and that's also a great way to bridge the gap between research and industry is internships. We had really fantastic success there. And this is like one of my top 5 Skydio videos is that Adam Savage actually used our drone, and he's like, we have a Slack channel called Failed on Skydio, which is exactly this. It's like you were excited, you were killing yourself, and then you like broke something and it fell down. It's amazing. So yeah, I'd love to take questions. I have no idea what time it is.
You're great. You got
Great.
that.
Questions?
Thank you.